Beautiful historic cities and UNESCO World Heritage Sites. A modern, bustling metropole. Hip nightlife. A tumultuous and extremely interesting history. Great cultural offerings. Lovely seaside towns. Exciting, affordable ski resorts. Wild, rugged and untouched nature. Friendly and incredibly resilient people, great food, and a very decent cost of living. All that while being in Central Europe and the European Union. Poland has always had a huge spot in my heart. My grandmother is from the beautiful seaside town of Gdansk. Many of my high school friends, as well as my high school sweetheart, my first meaningful relationship whom I dated for 7 years, were from Poland. And over the years, I have visited this beautiful country several times, both the metropole, the beautiful bustling metropole of Warsaw, or Warszawa as the Poles call it, the medieval town of Krakow, and some, really cute off the beaten track villages. Amongst digital nomads, Poland might not be that popular yet, but it should be. It is inexpensive, modern, has great digital nomad infrastructure, and a lot of interesting things to do and discover. So let's dive into Poland as a digital nomad destination and see what it has on offer. We will cover things like general travel information, digital nomad infrastructure such as internet and accommodation offerings, cost of living, where to make your digital nomad home base, interesting things to do in your free time, and of course visa offerings, short and long stay for digital nomads. As always, you will find timestamps to the different chapters, as well as links to the activities that I mentioned and other digital nomad resources down below in the description box. Without further ado, let's get right into Poland. Poland, officially called Republic of Poland, is a country in Central Europe. Poland has a population of 38 million people and is the fifth most populous member state of the European Union. It borders the Baltic Sea, the Kaliningrad Oblast, which is a Russian semi-exclave outside of Russia, Lithuania, Belarus, Ukraine, Slovakia, the Czech Republic, and Germany. The language spoken here is Polish. English is spoken by the younger generation, but not the older one. They, however, are usually able to speak German or Russian. Poland is part of the European Union, but does not have the euro yet. Instead, its currency is the Polish zloty, with $1 currently equaling 0.24 zloty. The weather in Poland is continental. Summers will be hot and winters will be cold and snowy. As I've mentioned, in my opinion, Poland is hugely underrated. It has so much on offer, from small, sleepy villages that seem as if time had stood still, to the bustling, ever-developing metropole of Warsaw. From the white sandy beaches of the Baltic Sea that invite for a swim during summer and freeze over during winter, to the lush green forests and the Tatras Mountains, as well as the beautiful ski resort and ski slopes of Zakopane. And all of that for a fairly decent price. Not to mention the ever-present reminders of the tumultuous European history of just a few decades ago. But of course, to be a fantastic digital nomad destination, a country does not only have to be interesting, it also needs some infrastructural requirements. So let's take a look at them to make sure that you can work productively here. First and foremost, as always, internet. Free Wi-Fi is available almost anywhere in Poland, particularly in the bigger cities. It doesn't matter if you're in a restaurant, a museum, or a mall. Speed-wise, Poland ranks 31st in terms of broadband speed, with 107.26 megabits per second download speed and 38.18 upload. Mobile internet speed ranks 45th, with 48.71 megabits per second download speed and 10.30 megabits per second upload speed. When it comes to actual infrastructure, Poland is an easy country to both get to as well as travel around in. The biggest international airport is Warsaw International. But if you are already in Europe, you might also be arriving by bus or train. Since Poland joined the EU, the Union has heavily invested in modernizing Polish infrastructure, which makes traveling around the country quite convenient. In the bigger cities like Warsaw, you will also find a modern and inexpensive public transport system, including buses and trams, and in Warsaw, also a subway. When it comes to accommodation options, you will find a lot of choice, with something for every taste, no matter if you wish to stay in a fancy hotel, a modern Airbnb, a cozy wooden lodge, or a social hostel. You will be able to find just the right fit for you, and probably at a relatively decent price. Which brings us right to cost of living. Poland is one of the most affordable countries in the European Union. Particularly when it comes to buying food, you will be able to find a tasty local meal for just a couple of dollars. A tip if you're on a budget food-wise is to visit one of the Soviet-style cafeterias called milk bars, where you can choose out of a wide variety of local dishes and be served over the counter out of a big pot. Don't be fooled by the no-frills approach of these places. They're hugely popular amongst the locals, and the food is filling, it's a decent-sized portion, it's very tasty, and it's inexpensive. But let's get into cost of living numbers. As always, my numbers come from Numbeo because Numbeo is a crowdsourced, inexpensive platform and are translated to US dollars because I believe that the dollar is a more relatable currency for everyone around the world. A family of 4 is estimated to pay 2,143 US dollars per month without rent. A single person is estimated to pay 652 US dollars per month without rent. Let's take a closer look at that, shall we? An inexpensive meal in a restaurant will cost you approximately $8.46. A cappuccino will cost you $2.89. A monthly transport pass will cost you around 26 US dollars. If you are staying in one of the bigger cities that I am recommending, like Warsaw, you will have a very, very modern public transport system with buses, trams, and in the case of Warsaw, also a subway, which means that you probably won't have to pay much more than that for transportation. Taxi starting cost comes at $1.93. A 1 kilometer taxi ride will cost you 73 cents. And basic utilities for an apartment of about 85 square meters for a month will cost you around $233 US dollars and 75 cents. Internet for the month would cost you $14.07 a month. And a 1-bedroom apartment in the city center would cost you around 638 US dollars. A 1-bedroom apartment outside of the city center, on the other hand, would cost you about 524 US dollars. And this brings us to the question of where to stay. Which city to make your home base? Poland is a huge and diverse country, and if you want to experience as much of its diversity as possible, it might make sense to spend some time in each of these cities and use them as a starting point for smaller adventures, while still having the digital nomad infrastructure in place to work productively in between excursions. Well, I guess I almost always start with the capital, and Poland's capital, Warsaw, is such an incredibly interesting place to start. It is a huge metropole and a perfect mirror of Polish culture and identity. Warsaw was completely destroyed by the Nazis during World War II. Yet, the inner core of the city has been painstakingly rebuilt to its original glory and is just gorgeous. Surrounding it are some gigantic Soviet buildings, reminders of Poland's years behind the Iron Curtain, as well as hyper-modern glass and steel skyscrapers that represent the young and modern identity of Poland's younger generation. Here you will find all the infrastructure you need to work productively. Free Wi-Fi, fast internet, co-working spaces, a big expat community, as well as plenty to do and discover in your free time. World-class museums, moving reminders of the country's tumultuous history. Michelin star restaurants, cheap, authentic eateries, buzzing nightlife, and hip bars. On that note, you might want to know that drinking in public, if not purchased in a bar or restaurant, as well as being overly drunk in public, is illegal in Poland. But that's just as a side note. Warsaw is also conveniently located in the center of Poland, with excellent connections to the rest of the country, making it a perfect starting point for any of the other sites I will cover in this video. So, what to do and see in Warsaw? Well, let's start with the Old Town. If you're a sucker for details, Warsaw's Old Town technically isn't that old, since as I mentioned, it had to be completely rebuilt after World War II. While I've heard some complaining that this makes it less authentic and just a tourist trap, I could not disagree more, and honestly find that thought rather ignorant. Warsaw's Old Town is beautiful, with colorful houses, cobblestone streets and a gorgeous castle, as well as some remainders of the old city fortifications. It is a UNESCO World Heritage Site and has been rebuilt to its former glory. It can't be a Disney tourist trap, because this is how it looked before it got destroyed, right here in this place. Instead, as so much in Poland, I consider it to be both a window to the past and a glorious sign of Polish resilience, strength and determination to preserve their cultural heritage instead of just giving up and rolling over. If you are into classical music, you might want to visit the Holy Cross Church. Here, the heart of the famous composer Chopin is preserved in a jar of alcohol and buried. Chopin, originally Polish and apparently longing for his homeland all his life, of which he spent the majority of in France, made the request that his heart was to be cut out and buried in Poland upon his death. His older sister Ludwika fulfilled her brother's dying wish and secretly removed his heart shortly after his passing, hiding it in a jar of booze under her cloak and smuggling it to Poland. The Warsaw Rising Museum. Now, even if you're not that much of a museum person, this is one of the two things you must do in Poland to understand the remarkable Polish people, in my opinion. The other one would be the concentration camp of Auschwitz-Birkenau. So let's take a short but important history detour here that will help you understand the significance of many of the sites mentioned in this video. On September 1st, 1939, Nazi Germany invaded Poland, thus marking the beginning of World War II. Germany was aided by the Soviet Union and Slovakia, and the initial fighting lasted from September 1st of 1939 to October the 6th of the same year, after which Germany and the Soviet Union divided Poland amongst themselves. Both occupiers, but particularly Nazi Germany, reigned with terror in the country. Poland had before the invasion been the country in Europe with the highest amount of Jewish citizens. 3 million, or 10% of the population. By the end of World War II, around 380,000 were left. Impressively, Poland never stopped resisting, with the Warsaw Uprising in August 1944 being a huge effort of resistance. This uprising should not be confused with the uprising in the Warsaw Ghetto a year earlier. Another impressive feat you should research further while here. But back to Warsaw Uprising. The Warsaw Uprising was a major act of resistance by the Polish underground in an effort to free Warsaw from German occupation. It was the single largest military effort taken by any European resistance movement during World War II and went on for 63 days. The Warsaw Rising Museum commemorates this time in a gripping, educational and awe-inspiring exhibition. To get the most out of the experience, I strongly recommend an audio guide, if not even a guided tour here. The museum is a little outside the city center, but can be reached by bus and of course by taxi or Uber. In the center of Warsaw, on Krasiński Square and right in front of the Polish Supreme Court, you will also find a very impressive monument commemorating the Warsaw Uprising. And then there are the reminders of the Warsaw Ghetto, the largest Nazi-constructed ghetto for Jews during World War II, which you might know about from movies like The Pianist. Conditions in the ghetto were inhumane, And to this day, you can walk past several markers and landmarks commemorating it. Here, the Jewish population had their own act of uprising and defiance a year before the Warsaw Uprising. It was a final effort to stop the Nazis transporting the last remaining inhabitants of the ghetto to concentration camps. It was also the largest single revolt by Jews during World War II. Last but not least, to get back to present-day Warsaw, and for a fantastic photo opportunity and view over the entire city, head to the Palace of Culture, the ginormous Soviet building smack down in town. It has a viewing terrace on the 30th floor, and nowhere else in the city will you be able to enjoy such a spectacular view of Warsaw. The next super popular city amongst tourists and expats alike is no doubt Krakow in the south of the country. Krakow is visited by over 2 million tourists every year and is an absolute beauty. It is the only major city in Poland that survived World War II in its original state, thus allowing you to experience the pre-occupation Poland on a whole different level. The Wawel Castle, seat of the Polish kings for centuries, an impressive, lively market square, a beautiful market hall, and the stunning craftsmanship in each and every building. Krakow is a beautiful window to the past, yet even here, in its Jewish district, now one of the hippest and liveliest areas in town, history did not pass without leaving a mark. And this must be said for all of Krakow. While the city might have stayed intact, this does not mean that its inhabitants did not suffer greatly under the occupation. If you are a devout Catholic, you might like to know that one of the inhabitants of Krakow at the time of occupation was a man named Karol Wojtyła, later much better known as Pope Johannes Paul II. And as soon as you leave Krakow and drive just an hour westwards to the Polish border, the evidence of history could not be any more obvious. At Auschwitz-Birkenau, the world's biggest Nazi concentration camp. But let's step back a little before we get here. Why is it that Krakow survived in all its glory, but no other city did? One of the reasons must have been that Krakow was chosen by the Germans as their main administrative seat in Poland and thus did not get bombed. Today, Krakow is a young and bustling city with an interesting nightlife and bar culture, thanks to its many universities and students. You will have no problem communicating in English here. The internet is reliable, the public transport inexpensive, there are plenty of things to do, both when it comes to museums, Krakow even houses an original Da Vinci painting, cultural activities or excursions outside of the city. Krakow is also a fantastic base from which to take trips to the Tatras Mountains. In Krakow, your first stop when discovering the beautiful city will probably be the beautiful old town with its enormous town square, stunning St. Mary's Church, the majestic Wawel Castle, which used to be the seat of the Polish kings until the 16th century and is well worth a visit to see the rich pre-World War II Polish culture and lovingly painted buildings. In the middle of the town square here, you will find the so-called Cloth Hall, an impressive Renaissance building that used to be Krakow's main trade center. These days, the shops and offerings here are very touristy, but go in anyways to marvel at the beautiful architecture and soak up the lively atmosphere. St. Mary's Basilica is well worth entering as well. It is famous for its jaw-dropping wooden altarpiece, as well as the trumpet signal that is played from the top of the larger of its two towers. The signal stops mid-tune to commemorate a watchman sounding the trumpet alarm in the 13th century when the city was attacked. He was shot in the throat with an arrow and thus stopped mid-signal. Particularly popular amongst children and those of us that have preserved their inner child is the statue of the mythical Wawel dragon at the foot of the Wawel Hill. It's a huge dragon statue that breathes fire every 5 minutes. But the coolest feature is that the visitors can make it breathe fire on demand by sending a text message. One of the hippest and liveliest districts in town, particularly to go out for some drinks, is the Jewish district, which still gives an interesting view into the rich Jewish culture in Poland pre-World War II. The majority of Jews did not survive the occupation, but many buildings are intact and stand as silent guardians of Jewish history and culture. One popular place to visit is Hevre Cafe in an old synagogue, which partly survived. You can sit here and enjoy a cold beverage while marveling at the original structure and stunning, rare frescoes. I should mention that while a very popular spot, its existence is not uncontested in the Jewish community, with some calling it exploitation of Jewish culture and heritage. So it is up to you to make up your mind whether you want to visit or not. If you have the time for some day or multi-day trips, Krakow is a great starting point for some very impressive ones. First of all, of course, the concentration camp of Auschwitz-Birkenau. Now, this might not be your funnest day trip, but it is a very important one. See, the reason why I am so passionate about introducing countries to you, explaining travel, is because I passionately believe that it brings all of us closer together if done correctly. It helps us understand different culture and tradition. It opens our mind and heart for other people's stories, their bravery, their tradition. It helps us understand one another more, builds bridges, and hopefully dispenses with prejudice and fear. And Auschwitz-Birkenau, the world's largest Nazi concentration camp, could not be a more somber reminder of why it is so important that we understand each other, even past different cultures, different languages, different religion, different stories, or how we look. And that is why I think everyone should go and visit here. About 1.3 million people, mostly Jews, were deported to Auschwitz, and 1.1 million were killed here. If you can afford it, you should strongly consider paying for a guide here who will put everything you see into context. If, after this deeply moving experience, you would like your next trip to be more uplifting, head to Zakopane, one of Poland's most famous ski resorts at the foot of the Tatras Mountains. It's a beautiful village with wooden houses and great ski slopes in winter. But even if you don't visit during winter, Zakopane is the perfect starting point for hiking trips into the impressive, rugged Tatra Mountains, part of the Carpathians. Take a day hike. Morskie Oko Lake, for example, has a really beautiful 16-kilometer hike going around it. Or hike multiple days surrounded by lush greenery, impressive rock formations, diverse wildlife, and breathe the fresh air. Camping in the national park is not allowed, but there are mountain huts you can book in advance. For an absolutely awe-inspiring, jaw-dropping, blow-your-mind experience that you can easily do as a day trip, visit the UNESCO World Heritage Site of the Wieliczka salt mine, which used to be mined for salt until 2007. Nowadays, it offers a fantastic day trip activity from Krakow. It reaches 300 meters of depth over 9 levels and is a whole city underground with chapels, restaurants, a lake, restrooms, exhibitions, and so much more. Heck, they even have designated Wi-Fi spots. A popular route is to take the so-called tourist route, which takes you past the major attractions on 3 of the 9 levels. A bonus is that salt mines are widely known for their positive healing effect of the respiratory tract, so you're doing something for your health along the line. The third city suitable for digital nomads and a great location if you wish to be by the sea is Gdansk. Gdansk has a special place in my heart because it is the hometown of my late grandmother. But aside from that, it is also just a stunning town by the coast of the Baltic Sea in northern Poland. While much of it has been destroyed during World War II, It has been beautifully restored, showcasing the former glory of this wealthy trade hub. It has a decently sized expat community and reliable digital nomad infrastructure. It offers plenty of things to do, has great restaurants and cultural activities, and you have access to the Baltic Sea. It's also a good starting point to continue onwards to Northern Europe, with ferries from its port leaving, for example, to Finland. Must-sees in Gdansk are its beautifully restored old town that, as so much in Poland, was left in rubble after World War II. This is where you will find St. Mary's Church, one of the 2 largest brick churches in the world. Climbing up its tower will reward you with one of the best views of Gdansk. From Gdansk, it's only a 45-minute bus ride to the peninsula of Westerplatte, where World War II started. You can visit remainders of the barracks here, as well as a monument and the Museum of the Second World War, which has very touching exhibitions and leftovers from the war, as well as has won an architectural prize for the building. For a day trip to a less controversial site, head to Malbork Castle, the world's biggest castle measured by surface area and previously home to the Teutonic Order. And then, of course, when it comes to outdoor activities, we can't forget about the seaside. Gdansk is part of a so-called Tri-City, together with the beautiful seaside resort of Sopot, characterized by its endless sandy beaches and buzzing nightlife, and Europe's largest wooden pier, and the smaller, sleepier small town of Gdynia. Spend some time by the beach looking for amber, or just relaxing. Enjoy some water sports or bathing. Or in winter, marvel at the fascinating sight of the Baltic Sea freezing over and just enjoy a day by the water. Last but not least, the city I would like to recommend as a digital nomad base is Wroclaw. It's a small but beautiful city for those of you who enjoy a bit more of the quieter life. Since a lot of international companies have their seat here, you will still find a sizable expat community to connect with. It has a beautiful old town and is known for its many waterways and bridges. So, while I hope that this gave you a taste of the beautiful Poland, its treasures, its history, its nature, its people, and everything else, there is so much more I would like to show you. Like the different national parks, with Wieliczka National Park being home to the last wild bisons, the European bison that once used to roam so many of our European forests. The Crooked Forest, the painted village of Zalipe, but there's only so much one can fit into a YouTube video, and I hope that you decide to visit Poland and spend enough time there to discover all its beautiful sights for yourself. So let's move on to the visa options. Bad news first. At the moment, Poland does not have a digital nomad visa. However, it does have a long-stay freelance visa that many of you could qualify for. I will get to how you can apply for that as soon as we've covered the short stay option, the tourist visa. If you want to stay in Poland for 90 days or less, a tourist visa is the general option. Keep in mind that technically, officially, even though many digital nomads have done so for, well, probably decades by now, you are not allowed to work on a tourist visa. Poland is part of the Schengen zone, and as such, you would have to get a tourist Schengen visa. By the way, if you would like to know more about how the Schengen zone works and so on, check out this video up here. Generally, what you need to know is that in order to travel to Poland on a tourist visa, you would have to get a Schengen visa, should you need a visa, that is, which would allow you to travel for 90 out of 180 days in the entire Schengen region. These here are the countries who need to apply for a Schengen visa and cannot get an entry stamp or visa upon arrival. If you're a citizen of one of these countries, you will have to apply for a Schengen Visa, which you do at the closest Schengen or Polish consulate. Keep in mind that even if you are allowed to enter the Schengen zone visa-free, as of 2024, you will have to register through the ETIAS service. ETIAS stands for European Travel Information Authorization System, and in the near future, probably from 2024, will collect your data for security reasons. So depending on when you watch this video, make sure to double check if you need to register, even if you do not have a visa that you need to present. Alright, let's move on to the long stay visa then. By the way, if you would like to know how to stay in the Schengen zone for an extended period of time, possibly indefinitely, check out this video up here. Otherwise, as I said, for Poland specifically, there is a freelance visa. And there are several services online offering to assist with that if you feel that the process might feel a little overwhelming. But for now, the basic steps are as follows. You should earn approximately $800 a month, and you need to apply for the freelance visa via a consulate. Next, you will need to get some permits, for which you will need your passport. The first thing that you will have to get is a PESEL number, which is kind of a personal identifier number, I guess like a social security number. This number you will then need to get a business bank account, pay your taxes, and take part in health insurance. You must also register at the Central Registry of Information on Economic Activity, which will provide you with the following two numbers. The first number is called REGON and is a business identifier number that will place your business. You as a freelancer are basically your own one-person business, so this will place you and your business in the Business Registry of Poland. Next, you will need a NIP number. The NIP number is the tax identifier number, which you will need to pay business taxes in Poland. The business tax rate is approximately 19%. And basically, that's it. Now, if this really is something that is interesting to you, I recommend that you get help from an agency, mainly because all these numbers and, all the walking to and from different authorities, hoping that they will be able to speak English and be able to provide you with the paperwork in English, might be a little bit overwhelming. Generally, my opinion is this is a good option for you if you, for whatever personal reason or choosing, want to really stay in Poland for an extended amount of time. The thing that I personally find so beautiful with digital nomad visas, on the other hand, is that they're relatively hassle-free, meaning that it's kind of a cookie-cutter concept, I mean, you kind of always need the same paperwork to all countries that offer a digital nomad visa. Yeah, the income requirement might, vary a little bit, and one might want a criminal record, the other doesn't. But anyways, generally you always need the same paperwork. So once you've done it once or twice, you kind of should get a hang of it. And if that isn't the case, then I guess you have several options. You can take the Schengen visa and move to Poland for 90 days and then leave the Schengen zone, or hop in and out of the Schengen zone every 90 out of 180 days if you feel that you would like to come to Poland more often. Or you just pick a digital nomad visa of one of the digital nomad visas in the Schengen region and then use that to frequently come and visit Poland. With that said, that's it for today. Check out my other videos about the Schengen visas and Schengen digital nomad destinations. And next week we will move to one of the newest digital nomads visas on the block, which is the digital nomad visa to Uruguay, which, by the way, currently also is the easiest digital nomad visa to get out there. But more information on that next week, so stay tuned, stay safe, and I'll see you here again. Bye bye.